And if they're looking down to the left, oftentimes that represents an internal dialogue. In other words, they're like saying to themselves something. And it could be in this case, okay, how do I say this without telling my family's secrets to this person? So you don't have to remember all of this perfectly, and there's really actually a lot more to it than what I'm giving you, because there's memory and there's creation and there are all sorts of things. But if you have a student and you say, what's the matter? What's can I help you? What happened? And they say, well, it's about last night. And they're looking up. What is it that their brain, how are they thinking about last night? Visually. So here's what that helps you do as a teacher. If a person is accessing visually, you can respond to them and connect with them better in terms of seeing terminology. What did you see? Or it must be hard to see it that way. Or, help me see what's going on with you. Because that will connect better than help me feel what you're feeling. Right now they're not feeling, they're seeing. And to get to the feeling, they're going to have to work through the seeing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you recognize that they're accessing auditorily, you can use terminology and things that relate to hearing. I hear what you're saying. I hear you. Or it sounds like you aren't happy with that grade, instead of, I see you don't like the grade I gave you, or you're feeling bad about that. It sounds like you're not happy. And then if they're accessing kinesthetically, use terms of feeling. That must feel awful. Or I feel happy for you. I'm really happy that happened to you. That's great. Now, this takes some time, and I don't expect you to become experts from 5 minutes of discussion. But if you're interested in learning more about it, look up on the internet eye accessing cues, ask about it, look up NLP. You've got the handouts. You gave them the handouts? Oh, you'll have handouts. And, okay, you'll get handouts, and the handouts have all these slides on them, so it'll remind you of the terminology of it. But that will help you to think a little bit more about it. But believe it or not, it's a deeper level of connecting with people, and it's a way that's actually pretty easy once you get used to it. So after you go out of here, start watching how people access, and you'll see that it actually is true. So I have a warning for you about observation skills and about utilizing your own and observing about yourself. Don't behave nonverbally in any way that's incongruent for you. If you're uncomfortable doing something nonverbally, if you're uncomfortable touching a student, which nowadays, as you know, probably sometimes is really dangerous anyway. But if you're uncomfortable, taking a student on the shoulder and touching that student, don't do that because you've heard that it's a nice thing to do. And I'm sorry I used your example, I shouldn't have done that. But if it's uncomfortable for you, you won't be able to do it well. Sorry. You won't be able to do it without feeling uncomfortable, without looking to the other person like you're not doing it out of where you are. And also, try not to interpret what's going on with the person out of the context of their race, their ethnicity, their gender, their generation, and their personality and values. Try to take all those things into consideration because we are a diverse society. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing we're not all alike. So that diversity is really important for us to remember as we relate to our students. So let's talk about that diversity for a minute. I'm going to let her pass those out to you. So. Thank you for doing that. Now, we're not from all the same culture. So you might recognize how your own nonverbal communication differs from some of the things that we say typically we should do. For instance, looking a student in the eye or looking a parent in the eye. We would think that was, in our culture, in our Western culture generally in the United States, we would think that is an appropriate way to communicate and connect with a person. And it's true, in our Western culture it is. However, you'll notice that it differs even between the races in our own Western culture. And it actually differs within the races as well. But you will notice sometimes that when people talk to you, or when they're thinking about something, they will look off over here to think about it before they can look at you to tell you. And that's true oftentimes with our Anglo culture. However, with African American culture, oftentimes when they're thinking, they'll look at you, and when they're listening, they'll look off, which is just the opposite of what the Anglo culture does. And so it's important to know that people have been reared in cultures that sometimes utilize body language, in this case, eye contact, in different ways. So keep that in mind. Now, if you're dealing with other cultures, such as an Arabic culture, prolonged eye contact is common. So what we might think of in our Anglo-Western society, or even our Western society, as too much eye contact, as staring at us, as looking at us, and actually kind of staring for a long time, might be seen as very normal in an Arabic culture. Or in Japan, or Africa, or Latin America, Caribbean cultures, sometimes eye contact is often seen as disrespect. So what if we have a student who just won't look at us in the eyes? She's a Japanese student, and she won't look at us in the eye, and we feel like she's just not paying attention, she's just not respecting us. Knowing her culture can help us to understand that what we expect for eye contact, for nonverbal communication, just inherently, because that's the way we've been brought up, is not necessarily what's appropriate for her. So it's important to take those cultural differences into consideration. Does that make sense? Facial expressions are also differing from culture to culture. Many Asian cultures suppress their facial expressions. Mediterranean cultures often exaggerate them. And most American men hide their grief and sorrow, and they don't want it to be seen. So if you have an American male come in who's lost his wife, he may never cry. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking to counselors again. Let's talk to teachers. If you have an American man whose child is doing poorly, he may not show much emotion. He may not show much affect about that. You may not see facially that that's bothering him at all. However, if a Mediterranean person comes in, someone from a Mediterranean culture, and they come in, they may be what you feel like, their facial expressions may be what you would think is exaggerated because you've been brought up, if you have, in a Western culture. So it's important to recognize that what looks like it may be at one end or the other to you for nonverbal communication may not be at one end or the other for the culture the person has been brought up in. So what I'm trying to do here is show you that we can't pigeonhole nonverbal communication. There are ranges for different cultures as well. Touch is another one, and here's some of the information. I won't go through all of this, but let me give you an example. In our culture, in the Western culture, handshakes are common, but a few months ago, or a few years ago, I was doing an interview with an Islamic man, and I researched Islam because I wanted to understand a little bit about it before he came in. I tried to learn as much as I could to talk to him about it and utilize, his language and an understanding of what to expect. The one thing I didn't think about was, should I shake his hand when he walks in? So I see him coming up the stairs, and all of a sudden I realize, I don't know what's culturally appropriate. I don't know. Should I shake his hand or not? So if you have an Islamic parent come into your classroom, it might be important to know that in Islam, people generally don't touch between the genders. If you're the same gender, it might be a different story. So if it's a father and you're a male, you might shake the hand. But in the Islamic culture, you may not. Now, the other thing that I'm not saying here is we haven't talked about acculturation. How long have they been in the United States? Are they accustomed to the ways that Western culture does things? If they are, it may be different for them. So that's another aspect and another layer of understanding this. However, they may be very strong and they may hold on to their own cultural norms. And so you may not want to shake their hand. So if you have a child or a student of a diverse culture, you may want to research a little bit about that culture to know how to interact with them appropriately so you can reach them in a way that reaches best with their culture.